is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Murphy.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, I am Mike Murphy, host of the Good Neighbor Podcast. We talk to local business owners. We talk to local nonprofits. We talk to influencers, movers and shakers, and most of them are your neighbors. And so we're letting people know all about the people that keep our community humming. And somebody who I have come to know recently and am getting to know a little bit better today is Samantha Harrison. And Samantha is the president and lead disability support strategist for Momentum Family Strategies. Samantha, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. It's a mouthful, so I'm always afraid that I'm going to screw it up, but sounds like I've done a great job today anyways. And so welcome to the podcast, Samantha, and say hi to the listeners, and please let everyone know what does Momentum Family Strategies do?
Yes. Thanks so much for having me, Mike. Again, my name is Samantha Harrison. I am the president and founder of Momentum Family Strategies. We support adults with developmental disabilities and their siblings with navigating life after mom and dad. So when you have someone that has autism, Down syndrome, or a different developmental disability, those folks oftentimes need long-term care services. We think a lot about long-term care when it comes to aging, but we don't talk as much about the long-term care services that people with developmental disabilities need. And we are seeing now more than ever that adults with developmental disabilities are living longer than their parents. And we have an emerging crisis of aging parents that are still trying to take care of their adult siblings or their adult children with disabilities, and then their siblings trying to pick up the pieces, both for care for mom and dad and also care for their sibling.
Okay. And there's a lot that needs to kind of happen around supporting a family that's exhibiting that sort of need. I know that speaking from personal experience, first of all, most of us know somebody that has a child that's, first their children, and then as they grow up, their needs change and the needs of the family start to change. And then someday you realize, oh my gosh, they're adults. And oh my gosh, I may not be around forever to support my child or children the way I've been doing all of their lives up till now. And they don't always know what to do. And whenever I've seen that sort of scenario play out, it's kind of, I don't know, just eye-opening for me, because I'm blessed that I don't have to worry about that. But someday I may. But in the meantime, I think it's kind of good that all of us in the community can be aware to support our friends and family members that are exhibiting that sort of need. So when somebody calls you, when they either come to your location, when they pick up the phone, go to your website, what is a common introductory message to them, or what do they ask usually?
Sure. The thing that we are seeing most commonly is siblings whose parents are declining or have recently passed. So it's never, really a light conversation. It is oh my goodness, I knew I was going to be responsible for my brother for the last 45 years, but today's the day where I have realized that, mom is not doing well and she can no longer support my brother. And I don't even know where to start. I don't know if he should live with us. I don't know if there's services available. Am I going to have to quit my job? Really big, pivotal decisions is what usually comes to us first, unfortunately.
Yeah. Things that keep somebody awake at night for many, many nights before they reach out. And I think, I had no idea literally until the past couple of days that Momentum Family Strategies existed.
Yes.
I went to your website and I kind of saw what you do. And I was sort of comforted in knowing that there are people out there that can kind of help some of the people that I know. And many of the people I know, I have a friend who's got two autistic sons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got multiple friends that have Down syndrome children, some toddlers, some teens. And I've just known many people through the years that when I looked at everything that you do, I'm thinking, okay, this is somebody that I need to introduce Samantha to, but they may already know you. So, this conversation is going to, I think, go a long way towards reaching a lot of people that you need to reach.
Yeah, and I certainly hope so. So Momentum got our start officially about 4 years ago. I had been working in our social service system, primarily in Medicaid waiver programs, which are designed to help individuals with disabilities continue living in their home as opposed to living in an institutional setting, a nursing facility, that type of a thing. I spent about 15 years doing that work. And after working with several of my peers from high school, they came to me and said, "Hey, you're graduating. Would you like to have a job working with, my friend at the time?" It seemed very odd. 3 or 4 parents approached me about that. And I was like, that's weird. They're my friends. Like, I don't need to be paid to do that. Of course, then, not knowing that there was a whole program designed for that. So our Medicaid waiver programs allow people to stay living in their homes and to have one-on-one support that they need to be able to live life and have, the same life that a typical adult would have, but folks with developmental disabilities need more support with navigating some of those tasks. Yeah. So I did that for a while, and then met a friend of mine who, at the time, she was 30 years old. She had cerebral palsy. She lived in her own apartment with a Medicaid waiver and had a team of about 10 to 15 caregivers at all times. And that was a lot to manage, as you can, imagine. Yeah. And so the question became, if I'm going to if she was going to stay in her apartment, how do we make that happen and keep good caregivers? Because you can have a caregiver, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're invested in your support. And what we saw was about every 6 months we had turnover, and that blessedly for her wasn't a new person necessarily just stayed for 6 months, but these jobs tend to catch people in transition. So she would have a college student come in and they would have 2 or 3 years and then they would go. And so on a 6-month cycle, we learned how to recruit and hire great caregivers that were a good fit for my friend, that helped her to retain them over several years because they were invested in supporting her and she was invested in them as an employer. And so when she unexpectedly passed away in 2022, her family and I looked at each other and were just blown away at how hard keeping up all of that recruiting and hiring and all of the program rules were. And so I took a deep look at what is Kentucky doing with our Medicaid waiver programs compared to other states. And admittedly, my first question was, what is Kentucky doing wrong? I have since, revised that to what are we doing differently than other states? But what I found is we're doing many things differently, and we have a lot of room for progress to make support like that accessible for families. So I took 6 months and I worked at a national consulting firm that helps to build Medicaid waiver programs. And I came back to Kentucky to help families specifically with this life after mom and dad piece, because we're seeing it more and more often now, especially with our aging population, that siblings just do not have the support they need to be able to continue making life work in the same way it always has when mom and dad can't continue.
Okay. Well, you've got a pretty strong background. And I will say you have you're high energy. You have a nice sunny disposition about you.
Thank you.
So you're representing very well so far. And so I know there are a lot of people that are going to listen to this conversation and they're going to have a lot of questions for you, and they're going to maybe want to reach out and help however they can. So, do you have a preferred method for people to reach out to you?
Yes. Our website, momentumfamilystrategies.com, there is a button on the top that says find a time to talk. And if you click that, it'll take you to a place where you can get in touch with us.
Okay. Well, very good. Do you have a particular either story or example that you kind of point to that is particularly close to your heart, or that you're excited about, proud of? It could be one or two stories. What would those be?
So recently we just wrapped up serving a family right here in Boone County who had previously never had support from our social service system, meaning they never had any kind of care support. The individual was in her 90s with developmental disabilities, which if you're familiar with that kind of support, a lot of people with developmental disabilities do not live to be in their 90s.
Yeah, that's surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what had happened was mom and dad had passed many years ago, and a sibling had stepped in to provide support and had done that for the rest of their lives together. And so now we have siblings in their 90s trying to support each other, which was an incredibly heartwarming thing to see. You know, they've done a great job for all of these years. At the same time, you know, your body doesn't work the same way. And, one of the myths that I think we see often is that we don't have people in their 90s that are caregivers for someone else. They're receiving the care. Right. But what we're noticing, not only here in Boone County, but also across the state of Kentucky, is that there are many caregivers in their 80s and 90s that are still responsible for being the primary caregiver for their adult child with developmental disabilities.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's somewhat surprising. And I think it kind of speaks to how humans can be resilient and, you know, take on any task when, I hate to say it, but when they really have no choice, you know. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that they should feel alone in that endeavor. On what level do you interface with people, and who helps you do that?
Yeah. So we work with families on a consultation and advisory basis to help them access the programs and services that they need that will then provide the caregivers on the ground. Okay. So Kentucky provides several Medicaid waiver programs that offer funding to help people stay in their homes. Those programs, some of our listeners may be familiar with. The Supports for Community Living waiver offers residential level services. If you're familiar with The Point and New Perceptions and ProudWorks, those folks, some of them are using funding from those programs. And then the Michelle P. waiver also provides services generally for younger folks that are waiting on residential level services. So one of the big myths that we see is that you can't have residential services unless you're going to live in a group home. And so what we work to educate families on is that the Supports for Community Living waiver is available to provide support that parents would have when you don't have a primary caregiver available anymore. It can offer, approximately 24/7 support. There's several services that have to come together to get to that 24/7, but they can continue living in their family home or in the sibling's home or another living situation. And we meet with families to help walk them through the process of the applications and the organizational setup of how do we get funding, how do we maximize the future planning dollars maybe mom and dad left us to care for our loved one. And then how do we recruit and hire good people to come in to provide those services?
Okay. So you're connecting people to resources. Yes. And do you have people that are also maybe donating funds to just kind of help you make that happen, or to help families directly? How does that work?
Yeah. So in the future, we're hoping to develop a nonprofit arm. Right now, we are working in a very quick manner to respond to this emergency that has come up with the number of families that are trying to access services with mom and dad being gone. We primarily at this time work with families that have future planning dollars set aside to use for their loved one's care. We also work with families that may not have that in a different kind of setup, but our primary situation, primarily we support families that have, are working with an estate planner, have set up a special needs trust, those types of things, and have funds set aside for that. And the question for the siblings becomes, okay, mom and dad left me money. to care for my loved one. They knew from the time that my brother or sister was born, they were going to have long-term care, and they got a life insurance policy. So when mom and dad passed, money went into this trust, and I'm sitting with funds and I don't know how to use them. And so we help people look at what does your loved one need, what funds are available, and then how do we maximize those future planning dollars so that they can have their best life, get the care that they need, and also have funds available still for being able to go on a vacation or to buy the things that they want to buy and those types of things.
Okay. I have a lot of attorney friends that kind of help families like the ones you're describing set up trusts, to have money there and some structure to care for their kids once they're gone, and so that the siblings have resources to pull from.
Right.
Do most people come to you when they're already kind of at that moment of crisis where they're like, oh geez, we're kind of just figuring out that we need help and we should have started this process years ago? Or do you have people coming to you saying, you know what, we've taken a peek into the future and we know something's coming and we need help setting something up now? Which is most common?
Most common is the emergency situation. And a lot of that, I think, is generational. So with our older generation, we have a lot of pride, and these folks were people who could have sent their children to institutions for their life. And so because of that, what we hear in almost every conversation with siblings that are in their late 50s and older, mom and dad felt like it was our problem. And we are responsible for this. We don't want government help because they fear that might mean abuse, even though we have come a long way with government funded services since that day. And so what we're seeing with the older folks is that when mom and dad are declining or deceased, often that's the emergency situation that's triggering looking for help. Many of these folks have never been connected to social service programs before. The family I mentioned earlier had never, didn't know that there was anything available until they happened to see a Momentum informational piece at the Black Goose and Union, and was like, this would help us a lot. We'd really like to get connected, and so that happens. We also are now seeing some folks that are starting to plan earlier. We're in year 4 at Momentum, and so I'm hoping as we go forward, we'll have more folks that are looking to plan a little sooner as well. But really, when we transitioned from general Medicaid waiver support to working on life after mom and dad a couple of years ago, we did that specifically because we're seeing this crisis that we want to help respond to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up the conversation, I just kind of want to pivot towards you personally.
Yeah.
A little birdie told me that you're getting married soon. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
A little birdie that told me that was named Samantha. So
yeah, I told it myself. Yes, very excited about that. It's a big year to do all of those things. So.
Yeah, and a doggy named Boone, I hear is
doggy.
Dog named Boone. I have a dog in my family named Boone as well.
Oh goodness, I love that.
Yeah.
We ended up naming our Boone after Mayor Boone of Rabbit Hash. Okay. Our Boone is 6 months younger than Mayor Boone. And so when we were thinking about getting a puppy, we saw that and thought, how wonderful. We've kind of started our life here in Boone County, and we'd love to take that with us. So.
Okay. Well, you've got a lot of exciting things happening personally in your life. So, marriage is one of those things that that's a great blessing, but there's a lot of work around that. So
sure is.
Hope you're having fun with it.
I'm having fun with it. I'm also not naive to the amount of work, but we're in it and committed and ready to do it. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
So before we sign off, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure that we fit into the conversation, or do you have a specific ask of the community at large? That's just sort of, you never know who's listening. You never know what their particular need is. But is there anyone out there that you just kind of have a megaphone message for? And if so, what would that be?
I sure do. One of the things that I think neighbors inadvertently move away from is having conversations with neighbors about what's happening next for their loved one. We can have someone that you went to church with and have gone to church with for 25 years, and everybody assumes that family has a plan for what comes next.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, especially with our older folks, that plan is very unclear. And so my message is, if you are connecting with someone in the union community that really needs future planning in some way, right? If they're an adult with developmental disabilities, if they have a child that that has developmental disabilities, please encourage them to contact us. What we really need from our neighbors is folks to be willing to spread the word that there is support available. Even if the family has never chosen to use government services before, they're not sure what's out there. There's a sibling that stepped out of the workforce because they're trying to manage this because they feel like it is their responsibility. They shouldn't have to do this alone. And we want to make sure that we are there for siblings to help them find the path to being able to have the most support they can for their sibling and for themselves, because they can't take good care of their sibling if they're not able to take good care of themselves. And there are programs out there that are available for that, and we would love to be able to show them the way.
Well, very good. That's a good way of putting it. You mentioned before perspectives. There are many, many community partners out there that you work with. So I just wonder, I know people that work with perspectives. Now, would perspectives be somebody that might share your information with them? Is that how people find out about you?
Right now, a lot of folks are finding out about us kind of organically through, interestingly, materials in our local coffee shop seems to be a really hot spot for people to learn about us. We are finding that families are going to meet with their friends and loved ones at coffee shops and having conversations about what to do and how stressed they are, and they're not sure where to go for help. We are working to build relationships with community partners to help get the word out as well. One of the things that we are finding a little challenging is, while we have great organizations like Perspectives and the folks that we mentioned earlier, and we want to be connecting with those families too, we are working really hard to try to find the folks that have never touched our social service system, that are more in the church communities, and maybe they're meeting at coffee shops and talking with doctors that know that these folks and that kind of a thing. Because while we have incredible services that are happening in our social service system, we have a whole group of people that have never accessed help before. And those folks I'm very worried about,
Okay. Speaking of worried about, do you think just in general, the Medicare services that you've mentioned throughout our conversation, is some of that funding at risk, or do you think it's pretty solid? Is it sort of, I guess, I don't want to say nothing's untouchable, but what, if you have your ear to the ground, what are you hearing? What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. So nothing's untouchable. Everyone's scared is what I'm hearing, and certainly with everything that's going on, there is a right to be. At the same time, ear to the ground, there has not been anything happening in Kentucky that says that our waiver programs are at risk. So specifically Medicaid waiver programs. There are, of course, changes happening with Medicaid, where if you have a loved one there, you need to be checking on how often you might need to renew those services, because those rules are changing in terms of insurance and those types of things. It's changing for work requirements, but generally we're not seeing a whole lot of the changes impact people with developmental disabilities specifically.
Okay.
At this time.
So they can reach out to you at, what's the phone number? If they don't want to go to the website, what's the phone number?
Yeah. 502-208-8906.
Okay,
that's us at Momentum.
And momentumfamilystrategies.com?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes.
Cool. So we're about to wrap, but I would ask the final question is, contact me, Samantha Harrison, if ... What comes after that ...
If you have a sibling with disabilities that you will be caring for now or in the future, it's never too early to start having conversations about these things. If you're an aging parent that is hearing this and you're not sure what your plan is, please contact us. And if you're a community member that would love to connect, we would love to get to know some more folks. I'm located in Oak Brook, right next door to Union, and I would love to get to know everybody that's listening.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Black Goose. Shout out to Black Goose.
Yes.
I know them well.
Yes.
Wonderful coffee shop. So I kind of like that you're using them to plant seeds, and I think it's a wonderful use of guerrilla marketing.
Everybody keeps telling me that, and when I first put a flyer up in a coffee shop, it might have been Black Goose, might have been the first one in the area, at least. I didn't really think that was going to be something that would be effective, but we're really working on unique guerrilla type marketing, I guess, to help reach this population that isn't otherwise connected. And so it's been a bit of a flex of creativity to reach those folks. But I was certainly glad when Black Goose agreed to host us there.
Yeah. Well, storytelling and education is something that I'm all about, around helping to spread anyone's gospel here in the community. So today, our 28-minute conversation thus far has really gone a long way towards helping you build awareness here locally for the local community. So thank you for all the good work you're doing within the local community. And thanks for spending time with us today. And with that, I will say that this wraps it up for the latest edition of the Good Neighbor Podcast, located here in Union, Kentucky. So, Samantha, until you and I have another conversation, let's just say goodbye to everybody. Say goodbye, Samantha.
Yes, goodbye, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been fun. Thanks for sharing all the information about Momentum Family Strategies. Anyone needing to reach Samantha, MomentumFamilyStrategies.com is the website to go to. I've been there. It's full of lots of information. It's very eye-opening. And I think that if you don't have the need yourself in your personal family, you know somebody that does need their services. So please reach out. Until next time, everybody, this is the latest edition of the Good Neighbor Podcast. So long, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Union. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpunion.com. That's gnpunion.com, or call us at 859-651-8330.